There is a time set by heaven, spoken by the prophets, written in the Word, that marks the shifting of realms, the turning of destinies, and the revealing of mysteries. It is the time when the night is at its darkest, yet the breakthrough of dawn is near. That time is 3 a.m. The world sleeps, yet the heavens do not. The forces of darkness move, yet the warriors of God rise. Have you ever awoken at this hour, startled, unsettled, as if something unseen was happening? It is no coincidence. It is not random. The Spirit stirs, the heavens move, and God speaks. Why 3 a.m.? In the Scriptures, the darkest hours of the night were the times of great encounters. It was in the midnight watches that Paul and Silas, bound in chains, began to sing, and the prison doors burst open. It was in the depth of the night that the angel of the Lord passed through Egypt, sparing the marked, judging the unrepentant. It was in the night that Gideon arose, that Samuel heard the voice of God, that Jacob wrestled with the angel and received his blessing. But what happens at 3 a.m.? It is the hour when many wake with a burden to pray, a revelation to receive, a warning to heed. It is the hour when the enemy works his schemes, but also when God unveils his plans. The watchman's hour. Those whom God has chosen often find themselves restless at this time. Some awaken with a divine urgency, their spirit stirred. Why? Because they have been called to stand watch. It is written in Ezekiel, I have set you as a watchman over the house of Israel. When you hear my word, you must give them warning. And so at 3 a.m., the Spirit moves, stirring those who will listen. Some are warned of coming danger. Some are called to intercede. Some are given instructions that will shape their destiny. The battle in the unseen realm, make no mistake, 3 a.m. is also the hour of warfare. The enemy knows it. The powers of darkness conspire, the forces of wickedness operate, but they tremble because they know God is still in control. It is written that when the enemy comes in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord raises up a standard against him. If God awakens you at this hour, do not ignore it. It is not just a restless night. It is not just a random stirring. You are being called into something greater. You are being awakened because something is happening in the Spirit and God needs you to act. What will happen? For some, 3 a.m. will bring revelation, an answer to a long-awaited prayer. For others, it will bring warning, a call to turn from a dangerous path, and for many, it will bring a commissioning, a divine assignment to rise and take their place. What will happen at 3 a.m.? That depends on you. Will you turn over and go back to sleep, or will you rise and say, here I am, Lord, speak, for your servant is listening, the prophetic call. Listen, for the time is near, the hour is approaching, the days are growing darker, but the light of God will shine brighter in those who are awake, in those who are watching, in those who answer the call. The midnight hour holds a mystery, a time hidden in plain sight, yet charged with spiritual significance. It is the darkest moment before the dawn, a time when most of the world sleeps, but the unseen realm is wide awake. Throughout the ages, this hour has been marked by divine intervention, spiritual warfare, and the unveiling of God's purposes. In the natural, it is the point when the night reaches its deepest darkness. But in the spiritual, it is the hour when the heavens move, the enemy advances, and God calls his people to watch and pray. Why is it that the most intense spiritual battles seem to manifest in the depths of the night? Why do many find themselves restless, stirred from sleep, sensing an unseen presence or a call to prayer? It is because the midnight hour is not just a point on a clock. It is a threshold between what was and what is coming. It is when the powers of darkness seek to establish their plans, but it is also when God releases breakthroughs to those who are watching. In Scripture, the midnight hour appears again and again as a time of divine action. It was at midnight that God struck down the firstborn of Egypt, delivering his people from bondage. It was at midnight that Samson arose, broke the city gates, and carried them away, a symbol of God's power to destroy the strongholds of the enemy. It was in the midnight watches that Paul and Silas, imprisoned and chained, began to pray and sing hymns to God. And as their voices rose in worship, the earth shook. The prison doors flew open and their chains fell off. Why did these events happen in the middle of the night? Because the midnight hour is a time of spiritual reckoning. It is when the battle between darkness and light intensifies, and when God's people are called to stand firm. In the natural, it appears to be a time of silence, but in the spirit, it is a time of movement. It is written that while men slept, the enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat. The enemy works in darkness, but he does not control the hour. God does. And when God moves, no force of darkness can stand against him. Many who are chosen by God find themselves awakened during these hours. Some wake with a burden to pray without knowing why. Others sense a spiritual presence, either an attack to resist or a divine message to receive. This is no coincidence. If your spirit stirs in the night, it is because you are being called to the front lines. You are being called to watch while others sleep, to stand while others slumber, to intercede while others remain unaware. When the midnight hour comes, it is not a time to turn over and fall back asleep. It is a time to rise. It is a time to pray. It is a time to seek the face of God, for the battle is real, but his victory is greater. And when you answer that call, when you choose to stand in the darkest hour, you become a vessel through which God moves. What happens in the midnight hour depends on those who are willing to rise and respond. Will you be one of them? There are no accidents in the timing of God. Every moment, every season, every hour holds a purpose in the divine plan. Among these appointed times, there is one that stands out, a mysterious hour, often unnoticed by the world, but recognized by the Spirit. It is the third hour of the morning, 3 a.m., a time when the natural world is at its quietest, yet the spiritual realm is fully active. This hour carries profound significance in Scripture, marking moments of divine visitation, judgment, and revelation. It is the hour when the veil between the seen and the unseen grows thin, and those who are awake may encounter the movement of God. Throughout the Word, there are patterns, times when God moves in ways that shake the heavens and the earth. The early hours of the morning are not just part of the natural rhythm of the day, they are moments when the Spirit of God breaks forth. It was during these hours that Jesus the Messiah would rise to pray while the world still slept. It was during the watch of the night that Jacob, alone and wrestling, encountered a heavenly being and received a new name. These are not random events, they reveal a truth. When the world is silent, God speaks. When others are asleep, God calls those who will listen. Why 3 a.m.? In the Jewish understanding of time, the night is divided into watches. The third watch, from midnight to dawn, is known as the morning watch. It is during this time that supernatural visitations often occur. It was during the night watch that the angel of death passed through Egypt, bringing judgment on Pharaoh's kingdom, but sparing those who were marked by the blood. It was in the fourth watch, just before the dawn, that Jesus came walking on the water to his disciples, revealing his authority over every storm. This hour is not just a time of darkness, it is a time of decision. In the quiet of the night, God releases messages that are hidden from the masses. Some awaken with a burden they cannot explain, an urgency to pray, a vision that will not fade. For these individuals, 3 a.m. becomes a holy appointment, a summons to meet with God. When he stirs your spirit at this hour, it is not by chance. It is because something is being revealed, something is being shifted, and you have been called to participate. But this hour is also a time of judgment. While the world sleeps, there are verdicts being released from the courts of heaven. It was during the night that Babylon fell. It was at midnight that the bridegroom came, and only those who were prepared with oil in their lamps entered in. God's appointed time is not simply a season to observe. It is a moment to be ready. To those who sleep spiritually, this hour will pass unnoticed. But to those who are awake, it is an open door to encounter the living God. When you find yourself stirred at 3 a.m., do not ignore it. It may be that God is calling you to intercede for a soul in danger. It may be that a revelation is being released that could change the course of your life. Or it may be that God himself is drawing near, waiting to meet you in the stillness. The question is, when God's appointed time comes, will you be found awake, or will you sleep through the moment that was meant to change everything? There's a reason why many are awakened in the stillness of the night, especially around 3 a.m. It is not mere restlessness or coincidence. It is a call from heaven to those who are chosen to stand watch. These individuals are not just ordinary sleepers disturbed by the night. They are the watchmen, stirred by the Spirit of God to rise when the world is at rest. This is no small thing, for when God calls a watchman, he is revealing that something is about to happen, something that requires prayer, discernment, and readiness. In ancient times, watchmen stood on the walls of the city, scanning the horizon during the night. Their task was to protect the people from unseen danger. If a threat approached, they would sound the alarm. Without the watchmen, the city would be left vulnerable to attacks that came in the cover of darkness. Spiritually, the same truth remains. The night is when the enemy works his schemes, but it is also when God raises up watchmen, those who are called to perceive what others cannot see and to pray against the plans of darkness. When God awakens you at this hour, it is not a random stirring. It is because you are being entrusted with a sacred assignment. The scriptures speak of this in Ezekiel 33:7, where the Lord declares, I have made you a watchman. Whenever you hear a word from my mouth, you shall give them warning from me. The watchman is not a passive observer, but an active participant in the divine plan. God does not need you to be awake, but he chooses to invite you into his work. Why 3 a.m.? This hour falls during the third watch of the night, a time historically recognized as a period of both heightened spiritual activity and divine revelation. It is during these hours that Jesus would separate himself to pray, seeking the Father's will. It was also in these hours that Peter, while in prison, was set free by an angelic visitation. And it is still during these hours that God speaks, reveals secrets, and moves on behalf of his people. When you wake up with an unexplainable burden to pray, it may be because there is a spiritual battle unfolding that only prayer can overcome. Sometimes the Spirit will stir you to intercede for someone you have not thought of in years. Other times, you may receive a clear word from the Lord, a revelation meant to guide your steps or protect you from danger. The calling of a watchman is not for everyone. It is for those who are willing to respond. It is for those who are willing to stand in the gap when others remain asleep. To ignore the call is to leave the gate unguarded, but to answer it is to partner with God in unseen victories. If you find yourself awakened at 3 a.m., do not turn back to sleep. Ask the Lord, why have you called me? There may be someone's life hanging in the balance. There may be a message that heaven is waiting to release. The night may be dark, but the watchman's light must never go out. Will you rise and take your place? There is an hour when the course of a life can change forever. It is a hidden hour, known not by the world, but by the Spirit. It is the hour of decision, a time when destinies are sealed, prayers are answered, and warnings are given. This hour is not marked by human schedules or the rising and setting of the sun. It is the hour when the unseen hand of God moves through the earth, altering futures, opening doors, and closing others. And for many, this hour arrives when the world is asleep. When the clock strikes 3 a.m. in Scripture, we see again and again that there are moments when God calls for a decision. These moments are not always loud or public. Often they come in the quiet, in the stillness, when no one else was watching. It was in the night that God spoke to Solomon and offered him anything he desired. It was in the night that Samuel first heard the voice of the Lord, calling him into his prophetic destiny. And it was during the night that Jesus cried out to the Father in Gethsemane, making the decision to drink the cup set before him. A decision that would bring salvation to the world. Why does God move so powerfully in these hours? Because it is in the quiet, in the place where distractions fade, that hearts are most open to hear the voice of heaven. When the noise of the day is silenced, the Spirit speaks with clarity. Some awaken with an urgency they cannot explain, a call to pray, a sense that something is shifting. Others receive dreams or visions revealing truths hidden during the waking hours. And for some, the hour of decision comes with a warning, a final chance to turn from a path of destruction before it is too late. This hour is not just about receiving from God, it is about responding to Him. When He stirs you at this time, there is a choice to be made. Will you rise and listen, or will you turn back to sleep? For some, the hour of decision is the moment when a long-awaited prayer is answered. But it is also the time when heaven's verdict is released, when a door opens that no man can shut, or a door closes that no man can open. It is the moment when eternal outcomes are decided. Throughout history, those who answered the call of this hour became instruments of God's purposes. Noah was warned of the coming flood and given time to prepare. Lot was warned to flee Sodom before judgment fell. The wise virgins kept their lamps burning while the foolish ones slept. And when the bridegroom came at midnight, only those who were ready entered in. The hour of decision is not one to take lightly, for what happens in this moment can change everything. If you find yourself stirred in these early hours, it is not by chance. You may be standing at the edge of a destiny-shifting moment. You may be called to intercede for a soul on the brink of destruction, or you may be receiving a divine answer that will shape the rest of your life. Do not ignore the hour of decision, for what you do in that moment may echo into eternity. When the hour comes, will you be found ready? Will you rise and respond? The decision is yours. There is a battle, a cosmic struggle that has been waged since the beginning of time. It is the conflict between the forces of darkness and the light of God. This battle does not pause while the world sleeps. In fact, it often intensifies when the earth is at its quietest. And there is a specific time when this battle reaches its peak, when darkness seeks to move unchecked, yet the power of God stands ready to overcome. That time is the early hours of the morning, often around 3 a.m., when the natural world is still, but the spiritual realm is fully active. And why is this hour so significant? Because the powers of darkness operate best in secrecy. Jesus himself said, men love darkness rather than light because their deeds were evil. The enemy does his greatest work when eyes are closed and hearts are unguarded. While the physical body rests, the spiritual realm does not. This is why in the scriptures some of the most profound spiritual battles and divine interventions occurred during the night. It was at midnight that the angel of death passed through Egypt, bringing judgment on Pharaoh, but sparing those covered by the blood. It was during the night watch that Gideon arose and with a small band of warriors overthrew the armies of Midian. The forces of darkness know the power of this hour, and they seek to use it to advance their schemes. But they also know something else. They know that the light of God cannot be overcome, no matter how fierce the battle becomes. The darkness cannot prevail against the light. It is written that when the enemy comes in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord raises up a standard against him. The darkness moves, but the light moves stronger. And when God's people rise to pray during these hours, they become vessels through which his power is released to push back the works of evil. Many who are chosen by God find themselves awakened at this time, stirred by an unexplainable urgency. It is not a natural restlessness, it is a spiritual call. Often they are being summoned into battle. There may be a soul hanging in the balance, a family under attack, or a nation at a crossroads. When God calls you to rise and pray during these hours, he is inviting you to partner with him in the unseen war, to stand in the gap and release the light where darkness seeks to reign. But make no mistake, this battle is not one of equals. The darkness has power, but God's power is greater. The enemy has plans, but God's purposes will prevail. It was in the dead of night that Jesus rose from the grave, breaking the power of death and hell forever. And still today, when his people answer the call to pray, the same resurrection power is released to shatter the works of the enemy. If you find yourself awakened in the night, know this: it is no accident. You are being called to the front lines of a spiritual battle. Do not turn back to sleep. Rise, pray, declare the victory of God. For no matter how fierce the darkness becomes, the light will always have the final word. And when you stand in the light of God, no force of darkness can stand against you. Will you rise and take your place in the battle? The hour is here. The victory is his. There are no coincidences in the kingdom of God. When something stirs your spirit in the middle of the night, when you find yourself awakened at 3 a.m. without explanation, it is not by chance. It is a prophetic wake-up call. It is a sign to those chosen by God, a call to rise and step into their divine purpose. While the world sleeps, God moves. And when he stirs you at this hour, he is inviting you into something greater, something eternal. Throughout the scriptures, God has always called his people in the quiet hours when others are unaware. It was during the night that the Lord called Samuel by name, setting him on the path of a prophet to the nations. It was in the watches of the night that Jacob wrestled with a heavenly being and received a new identity. And it was during the early hours before dawn that Jesus would separate himself to pray, seeking the will of the Father. When God awakens you at 3 a.m., it is not just to disturb your sleep. It is because something is shifting and you are being called to be part of it. This hour is significant because it is a time when the natural world is at its stillest, but the spiritual realm is most active. It is the time when the enemy seeks to advance his plans under the cover of darkness, but it is also the time when God releases divine messages, warnings, and assignments. For those sensitive to the Spirit, this is not just another hour. It is an invitation to align with the purposes of heaven. To be awakened at this time means you are being summoned, you are being trusted with something that cannot wait until morning. For many, this wake-up call comes with an urgency they cannot explain. Some are stirred to intercede, to stand in the gap for a person, a family, or even a nation under spiritual attack. Others receive dreams or visions, prophetic messages that reveal what is to come or instructions for their next steps. And for some, this hour is a turning point, a moment when God calls them to leave behind their old ways and step fully into their purpose. When God wakes you up, it is because He is preparing you for something greater. But this wake-up call is not for everyone. It is for the chosen. Many will sleep through the hour, unaware of the spiritual activity unfolding, but those who are marked by God will feel it. They will sense the weight of the moment and know deep in their spirit that they cannot return to sleep. They are being called to watch, to pray, and to move in obedience. And when they respond, heaven moves on their behalf. If you find yourself awakened at 3 a.m., do not dismiss it. Ask the Lord why He has called you. There may be a soul hanging in the balance. There may be a word He is speaking to guide you into your destiny, or there may be a warning, an assignment only you can fulfill. This is no ordinary hour. It is a prophetic summons. Will you rise and answer the call? For those who do, the path ahead will be filled with divine purpose, and the hand of God will go before them. The question is, when God calls you at 3 a.m., will you rise or will you sleep through your destiny? The choice is yours, but the time is now. In the quietest hours when the world is asleep, God is moving. Whether it is the mystery of the midnight hour, the call of the watchman, or the hour of decision, 3 a.m. is no ordinary time. It is a prophetic wake-up call to those chosen by God. It is a time when destinies are sealed, prayers are answered, and the forces of darkness are confronted by the light of God. This is the hour when heaven and earth intersect, and those who are willing to rise will experience divine revelation and supernatural breakthrough. If you find yourself stirred at this hour, know this: it is not by chance. You are being called to something higher. Whether it is to intercede for others, receive divine instruction, or walk into a new season, God is summoning you to rise. The world may sleep, but the Spirit is awake, and He is calling you to be a part of His unfolding plan. Do not ignore the stirring in your spirit. When God calls, respond. Rise and take your place in the spiritual battle. Stand as a watchman. Pray with boldness. Listen for His voice. For those who answer the call, there is a promise. His light will always overcome the darkness, and His power will work through you to accomplish what no human hand can do. May you be found ready when the hour comes. May you walk in obedience when the call is given. And may the light of God guide you as you fulfill the purpose for which you were chosen. Thank you for listening. May you be blessed, and may you always be ready to rise when God calls.